Welcome back. The House of Councilors election started yesterday and will run until July 10th. It will be electing 121 members of the upper house. There are 348 candidates that are vying for these posts. It's an exciting time, Michael.
It's a great time because this is really quite, in a stealthy way, probably one of the most significant elections ever in Japanese history, or at least the history of the last 30 years. And it's no one has really appreciated the depth and the importance of this particular election, because the House of Councilors, what is it? I mean, it used to be the joke house. Mm-hmm. It used to be the place where the professional wrestlers, where the actresses, where the singers, where the comedians were the candidates, and they would actually collect the most votes. It was an absolute
popularity.
It was a popularity contest, but it was also seen by the public as unserious. In the 1990s, the voting rates absolutely cratered. I mean, 44% showed up for one election, completely ignored. Then it became something really important, and that was due to the victory of opposition candidates in the House of Councilors, what was now known as the Nejire Kokkai, the twisted diet, where the LDP controlled the House of Reps, the more important house constitutionally, but the opposition controlled the other house, and that opposition was able to block anything that the LDP would set up. And unless the LDP had a 2/3 majority in the House of Representatives, that was the end of that legislation. That suddenly made the House of Councilors really important, and it's been important ever since. Tables were turned in DPJ times when they lost control of the House of Councilors in 2010. That basically destroyed their government. Oh, they limped on for a few years, but without control of both houses of the Diet, a government is really, really hobbled. Now, right now, this year, the 2016 version, the LDP and its coalition ally, the Komeito, they control the House of Reps. They also control the House of Councilors. So there's no prospect of radical change in terms of legislation. They're trying to preserve that legislative advantage, but because the Komeito and the LDP have a 2/3 majority in the House of Representatives, the more important house, the lower house.
It does have a sway factor, doesn't it?
Whether if they lose control of the House of Councilors, it's not a problem because they have the override provision. So many people have said, okay, so nothing's going to change. Things are going to change with this election, and that's the great thing about it.
There are so many candidates that are vying for the seats. The opposition parties are going together and supporting individual candidates through some sort of a alliance program that they've launched.
Okay, that's one of the real innovations of this, and very innovative House of Councilors election. There are several different aspects that we should get into. But first is the joint candidates. 4 main opposition parties, well, 2 main opposition parties, really, the Communists and the DP, the Democratic Party, with 2 minor parties as their allies, are offering joint candidates in 32 of 32 single-member districts. Now, the single-member districts are the places in Japan which have low populations, generally are somewhat parasitic on the rest of Japan in that they probably take in more in terms of government revenues than they actually give out in taxes. They're basically dependent on the core areas of Japan. These have been the bastions of the LDP. And any attack on them by members of the opposition has always been hobbled by the fact that the communists have put forward their own candidates in these districts, which meant that an anti-LDP candidate had to fight both the LDP and the communists.
Right.
This year, in the single-member districts, the communists are on board, and they're putting forth just one opposition candidate. That's a really interesting challenge, and it's following up on the Hokkaido 5 by-election, where a joint 4-party candidate nearly toppled the LDP Komeito choice.
You know, it's really interesting. Saturday and Sunday, all of the party heads, including the prime minister, were all over the airwaves, on TV and on the radio, having this debate back and forth in anticipation of the launch of the elections, which started yesterday. And you hardly ever have an opportunity to see the prime minister in action being attacked. And he's sitting there with the other opposition party leaders too. And it's what a huge dynamic. You can actually see, the policy pronouncements that these fellows are making right from their own mouths.
And it's been a really amazing thing in that they really crammed together in a very short amount of time a whole bunch of debates. I think it was 5 over the weekend with all of these different party heads.
Pretty impressive.
And they were moving together, they coordinated so that the public, whether it was by the traditional means of the big shindig that they have at the National Press Center, or something that's only web-based. They had a web-only debate. They've really worked together, and it was very interesting to see them interact. However, basically, there's nothing that's going to change. It's not like they're going to have a gotcha moment.
Right.
They're just going to state their policies, and that's what they did. They state what the policy platform is. The interesting thing is the things they're not saying, I think. Most importantly, the issue which everyone has been talking about going into this election, which is constitutional revision. That has evaporated away.
It sure has, yeah.
Mr. Abe won't talk about it. Instead, the LDP, which has in its own founding documents, constitutional revision is one of the reasons we exist as a party. But the party manifesto for this particular election says we want to deepen the discussions and bring the people into the discussion of whether there should be constitutional revisions or not, which is so milquetoast, Yeah, where's the fiery Abe of the past saying, if we don't change the Constitution, we will not survive?
Well, it's like what Mr. Tanigaki said just the other day. Once we finish the election, we're going to go full bore on Abenomics. So probably likewise, let's finish this election first. Let's cobble together as much as we can, and then take it from there.
That same Tanigaki said something incredible regarding constitutional revision that just blows my mind. He said we shouldn't be discussing it in a way that is vague and simplistic, because we're all amateurs.
That's true. That's right.
He said that we're amateurs at this. We've never done it.
We've never changed the Constitution, so we kind of don't know where we're going with this.
That's right. So let's not. What?
Yeah. Actually, I thought that was a good comment, because it brings to the fore that they really never have. Since the Constitution was created, it has never been touched. So they don't even have constitutional theorists that can talk about what it would do and how it would impact other things and what are the consequences.
Oh, they have theorists. They just don't have any data.
Yeah.
They have no idea what's going to happen. And you get a sense that, well, if there were somebody who probably, maybe the TV announcer Ikegami could probably point out, you've had 60 years to prepare. Don't tell me that you're amateurs.
Right.
Someone has got to point out to this crowd that you don't get to suddenly, after 60 years of demanding it, which is how long the LDP's been in existence,
right,
that suddenly, maybe not.
Yes.
We're not really that interested in it. But what was really stunning to me was the Kyoto poll, which polled over 300 potential candidates, persons who had declared themselves as candidates. The Komeito candidates, not a single one supported constitutional revision. They didn't deny it. They said they said that they didn't have an opinion on it, but nobody came out in favor of it. The communists, of course, all said it can't happen. They were opposed. But the Komeito, the communists' deadly enemy, is also not on board at all with what was supposed to be the signature, the main focus of the entire whole shebang.
Right. Well, you watched all of the debates and all of the party heads there, and I'm sure you picked it up too. The only one that really looked presidential was the prime minister. Everybody else looked like a contender. They looked like an angry old person. They looked like they were forgetful, fidgeting old man. It just looked, the dynamics there were just really inescapable.
Well, he's had 3 years to practice, and that kicked me off when I saw that they have this wonderful not a habit, but this custom of writing down what their hopes or dreams or the motto of their campaign is, and then showing it. That wonderful cultural thing that they do. He put on the same one that he had put on the previous years, which was seika o dasu, putting out results. Not necessarily achieving anything, but putting out results. You can sit still and you'll still put out results. Come on. And you've been in office 3.5 years, and you're still offering to put out results? What are you talking about? I just had a visceral reaction to that. The other party heads had various kinds of absurd promises. The New Renaissance Party was the classic one. It had Abenomics plus leaving nuclear power, and then on the side, the guy wrote, for some reason, hydrogen fuel cells. That was his promise to the people. And you said, oh, great. The New Renaissance Party was, in fact, the party of Masazoe, the former governor of Tokyo. It's now run by one guy named Arai. And how it even gets on the podium along with the other parties, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I like Arai, though.
I like Arai, but that's his Abenomics plus getting out of nuclear power, hydrogen fuel cells. And then there was the immense irony of Japan Kokoro, of Nihon Kokoro, the farthest ultra-right party, and its leader putting up a sign saying, peace, heiwa. That's our goal. I guess it's peace through strength. You know, we come in peace with powerful weapons. You know,
it wasn't only Tanigaki who made this kind of statement that makes you scratch the side of your head, but also during this period, right when we're in elections, things that are said, small scandals now, they can be completely blown out of proportion. And the person who is most prone to making these kinds of pronouncements is the current finance minister, Mr. Aso, and he said something pretty outrageous just the other day, didn't he?
Well, I don't remember which one you're trying to refer to. Which of his many outrageous statements is this?
Okay, well, this one is a repeat of what he had said sometime earlier. It's, to paraphrase it, is hurry up and die. You know?
Oh, yes!
How much longer are you going to be here? And before you die, spend all the money that you've saved, right? We need to engage the economy. You need to be dynamically engaged.
Well, he certainly should start spending some of his money and maybe spend all of it, and then you'll find out what other people feel like.
Yes.
You know, one of the things that, I mean, he's a very likable person, and if you saw him in his younger days, he was a good-looking man. And he's a former Olympian. He's, I think, one of the few.
Right.
Yeah, he was skeet shooting. And man, if you see him in his gear from that time, that guy could really rock a turtleneck, just amazingly. But because he's from a wealthy family, he's from a very prominent political family as well. His grandfather Yoshida Shigeru was the immediate post-war prime minister. He doesn't really know what regular people feel.
Well, that's a characteristic of what goes on over in Nagata-cho. I mean, a lot of people, they're living in a different world. They deal with each other differently than normal Japanese people deal with each other. I mean, it is kind of an enclosed world.
Yeah. When we're looking at the candidates that are likely to win, there are a lot of candidates who are just running. I mean, if you look at the poster outside, next in front of the school, it has all these different faces. Only a few of them are really viable candidates. You have the candidates of the Happiness Party, and then you have all these minor figures. Still, the ones that there are here in Tokyo, we're going to be electing more than one. This is not a single member district.
Right. Let's talk about that just for a second, because a lot of our viewers are here in Tokyo. The billboards went up a couple of days ago. They've got numbered blocks.
But the posters only went on yesterday because the law requires you to wait until the official start of campaign
So,
season.
so they set it up in our neighborhood here in Chiyoda Ward, 28 blocks for 28 photos, but 28 photos won't go into that billboard.
They're not going to be 28 candidates.
That's right.
But they were guessing approximately. The choice will be for one person. Each person has a vote in the district for one person. However, there may be more than one seat. Tokyo has the most seats available, so the person who gets the most votes will get the first seat. The second most votes with the second seat, all the way down the line.
That's one category.
And so the person who goes to vote, the individual voter, puts out two ballots.
Right.
The first one is for the district, and you are either in a single member district or a multi-member district, but you only get to vote for one person on that. And then there is the ballot for the proportional seat. 96 of the 242 seats in the House of Councilors are proportional seats. So 48 of those seats that are up for election are going to be proportional candidates. That's run according to the number of votes that a party receives or a member of a party receives. On that ballot, you can either write a party name or a person's name, but that person has to be a representative on the proportional list of that party. You can't have an independent person winning off the proportional list. That's not possible. So there's a party's vote and a person's vote.
Okay. The proportional representation, they represent the whole country of Japan, and you vote for that person. Where does that person's face go? They're not on the billboards outside, are they?
They're not, because they're not a district candidate.
Right.
It's just, you have to either know them publicly, and everybody gets free airtime on NHK to present themselves and present their case. They also can give out campaign literature. The party can also have posters up by individuals that say the person has a big person's face on it, along with the head of the party usually. If the head of the party is very unpopular, the candidates actually say, please don't put the party head's face there because that will drive people away. But you're right; they're not part of the display in front of the voting booth.
And to overcome part of that disadvantage, on the ballot you can either write that candidate's name or the party that they're representing.
That's right. And what happens is the person,
and it's not circling. You have to actually physically write it out.
You have to physically write down the name, and there's always a few ballots that are spoiled by people who put down names that are either illegible or might be two candidates. And that's why in these elections, you will see in the election results, people actually have fractional vote totals. It's not 11,312 votes. You can have 11,312.3333 votes as your total, because when there is some kind of confusion, is it Mr. Watanabe or the other Mr. Watanabe? They split the votes, and because the requirement that you have to write down a name. The party vote doesn't work that way. People are very clear about their parties, but when they're voting for individuals, you can actually end up with fractional votes.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the other side of the election campaign. Those are the individual candidates for the district seats. So you get one vote there, but some really popular candidate could accumulate a lot of votes and probably suck away some of the votes from another LDP person, for example, who also is running, but he's competing with the opposition parties. How do they take care of that big, huge discrepancy in, we like the party, but this fellow is getting more votes than this person. And also, our coalition partner, Komeito, they're a little bit on the shy end too.
Well, that's the way of trying to get voters to vote a particular fashion in order to maximize the party's victories.
That must be a new trick.
Is something that the LDP, despite all its other wonderful attributes and all of its other capacities, never has really been able to nail down. The Komeito, by contrast, has everything nailed down. It in past elections has in fact split its votes, telling half of its followers, you vote for the party, and the other half to demonstrate how coordinated they are. And if you may not believe this, or anyone watching might not believe this, but you can actually see physically in the vote totals how many seats they are officially targeting, because it will be the bar graphs will be astonishing, almost the same size. Now that means that nationwide they've coordinated in choosing.
That is huge.
They're saying this person, you will vote for this person, you will vote for this person, and the first candidates up to that boundary point where they say, okay, we want to elect 9 people. Those first 9 candidates have hundreds of thousands of votes, and then that 10th candidate who's not on the list, a few thousand.
Right.
It just drops off like a cliff. It's absolutely unnecessary. That's the amazing thing. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is write down the Komeito party.
Right.
But instead, to demonstrate their ultimate coordination, they actually go through this entirely useless and pointless exercise of taking those names and saying to people, you will vote for this person. You will vote for this person on a nationwide scale.
How does the LDP do it?
The LDP tries to make sure that...
Because they have to support their coalition partner by not robbing them too badly.
Well, in this case, it's not even it's within the LDP. Let's say in Tokyo, they have 2 candidates. What's to prevent one candidate for taking all the LDP votes and the other to have just a few? And what happens is instead of there being 2 LDP persons elected, 1 is elected and 2 Democratic Party candidates are elected.
Right.
They try to coordinate. They try on a basis of the prefecture, try to make sure that some of the votes that get pushed over to that other person. Of course, this kind of vote buying and selling, it looks kind of sleazy and feels kind of sleazy. But if you're trying to maximize the output for the party, you do what needs to be done.
Right.
And it all comes out in the wash. And eventually, there's a quid pro quo of some kind. The candidate that got helped somehow helps the candidacy of somebody else. It all works out. But it's absolutely not in the same league as the coalition partner Komeito.
Right.
They absolutely coordinate down to the household level.
Interesting. Listen, on Tokyo on Fire, we very rarely diverge from our topics, and we usually stick really close to them. So in normal fashion, I would like to interject another issue that's related but kind of unrelated, and that is today is the 23rd of June, and the election campaign has been added one additional day, and that's today. You can not hear any sound trucks now. Maybe they've taken it off as a sign of respect, but today is a significant day in Japanese history.
This is the day of commemoration of the end of the Battle of Okinawa. And indeed, the powers that be decided that the election campaign, which could have begun today, was actually kicked back one additional day, starting on the 22nd, so as not to interfere with the commemoration events. Usually the Prime Minister flies down to Okinawa.
He's there today.
And takes part. And that means that there's no campaigning. And indeed, there are no sound trucks. There's no one saying, please vote for me, which would normally be happening.
Normally you would be hearing that today.
But today is a very important day. And it's especially important in terms of this election in that the opposition in their, whatever you want to call it, you call it a coalition, I call it an alliance, they have as one of their platforms that the Heneko base will not be built. That the Futenma Marines Air Station, whatever they do with it, it cannot be shifted. The forces there cannot be shifted to Heneko, which is completely contrary to the position of the current ruling government.
The election campaign for the House of Councilors started 2 days ago. Today we're taking a day off, a national day of remembrance for the Battle of Okinawa, and the election will be called on July 10th. Stay tuned. Continue to watch the newspapers and TV. This is an exciting time to be in Japan.